JP Madison. Hello. All right, so what's the verdict on the pink cookies? No, I just want everybody's eating. Uh-oh. And the Washington County Quorum Court is now called into session. Good evening. Welcome. Happy Valentine's early. If you guys haven't got that or heard that yet, let me be the first to share it. J.P. Johnson, will you lead us in prayer and pledge?
Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for blessing us, and we thank you for loving us, and we thank you for your Son. And we just ask for your guidance and your wisdom tonight as we conduct the business of Washington County citizens. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we have a full agenda tonight, so we're going to jump in. I do want to acknowledge on the court, we have the governor appointed a new JP. You guys remember JP Harvey, Harvey Bowman moved out of the area. We got the appointment. We have Mr. Derek Thomas, not the Derek Thomas Chief of Staff, Kansas City Chief, or the Derek Thomas who played Razorback football, but the Derek Thomas who's now representing the county. So let's give Derek Thomas welcome to the court. I think he has two little ones, so I'm sure he stays pretty busy with two little boys. But again, welcome to the court. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and look for the approval of the adoption of the agenda.
I move the adoption of the agenda.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Second. Any questions? All in favor? Those opposed? Those opposed? All right. Adoption of the agenda. Preliminary motions.
Yes, I move that ordinances tonight be read by title only.
All right. We have a motion to read by title only. A second? A second by J.P. Hires?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I have one more comment, if I may.
J.P. Madison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I have struggled that I think this meeting tonight is perhaps not truly in order. And I have read both the state statute and the county ordinance regarding this, and they both say that the date and time may be changed when emergency exists and the safety of the general public is at risk. And it is my hope that early voting does not put the general public at risk. And for that reason, I'm going to be voting tonight, but sort of under protest, because I do have concern, especially having learned that the Election Commission asked for this to be moved back in April of last year, yet we only were advised a few weeks ago. And bear in mind that the public does attend our meetings and sometimes arrange their schedules to fit our schedules and their speakers to fit our schedules, and their schedules have been disrupted by this change. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion and a second on preliminary motions. All in favor?
It already passed.
That passed already? Okay. J.P. Hires, you had something?
Thank you, Judge. I was trying to raise my hand before we voted on approving the adoption of the agenda because number 21 on this did not pass out of committee. It failed in committee to move forward, and so can I make a move to strike that?
It's already adopted.
Okay.
At this point, we have public comments. We'll welcome the citizens to come up and visit with us, and we have a 15-minute time frame. Please state your name, where you're from, and share with us what you have.
Good evening. My name is Scott McElroy. I live in Bridlewood Estates, and I'm here tonight concerning the CUP for Genesis countertops. My comments represent a large and growing group of concerned residents both in Bridlewood and in surrounding neighborhoods. We have only one request this evening, and that is to hold the third reading of the proposed CUP until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Quorum Court. At the first reading of the proposed CUP, there were a variety of issues raised and discussed. They included health risks of silica dust, environmental concerns, heavy truck traffic, and noise. While those are all relevant matters, they are not the primary matter. The overarching issue is one of compliance with applicable established law. In 2006, the Quorum Court approved the 2006 Land Use Plan for Washington County, which I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with. Other relevant law is in Section 11-200 of the Washington County Planning Ordinances, which deals with the allowance of conditional use. While I am not an attorney, we have been advised by our counsel that our objection to this CUP is on firm legal ground. At the next regularly scheduled Quorum Court meeting, we will be prepared to present clear evidence supporting the denial of the proposed CUP in compliance with established law. Also, at the first reading of this CUP request, we heard from several who voted in favor of the CUP that the proponents' property rights needed to be respected, in that they should be able to do as they pleased on their property. We could not agree more, but would point out that rights for all types of property are bound by regulations, which define what an owner can and cannot do on their property. The applicable law here is clear. The proposed industrial property use is simply not compatible with the surrounding area. So the issue before the Quorum Court is not about being a good neighbor. It's not about promoting entrepreneurship or any of several other bases that we heard for supporting the CUP. What it is about is enforcing the established regulations and ordinances regarding compatible land use. These laws were put in place by this governing body to protect the interest of all property owners. So in summary, we respectfully request that the third reading of the proposed CUP for Genesis countertops be held at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Quorum Court. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Quorum Court, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. What I have to say is very brief, maybe 90 seconds or so, so it'll save us a little bit of time. I just want to build on the comments that Mr. McElroy just presented. So my name is Don Kephart. I live at 4166 Quicksilver Lane, and that's in Bridlewood Estates, and I'm the president of the Bridlewood Estates Property Owners Association. We have many of our members with us here tonight in the room. Some couldn't make it for the special meeting, but we have quite a few folks with us here tonight. Regarding the conditional use permit for Genesis countertops, and speaking on behalf of a large group of very concerned citizens, we learned on Monday, February 10th, this Monday, that the item was on the agenda for the special meeting here tonight. And so we are very concerned that the Quorum Court might take the action to do the second reading tonight, certainly, which is on the agenda, and to suspend the rules and do the third reading also tonight. And so we have legal counsel who will be speaking for us in the future, but could not be here tonight. This person is traveling out of state, and so just obviously is unable to be here with us tonight. So to build on Mr. McElroy's comments, we respectfully request that you schedule the third reading for this CUP at the next regular meeting of the Quorum Court. And at that time, our legal counsel will be able to speak on our behalf. So for the reasons that Mr. McElroy mentioned, and you know, those are the primary issues, we really have been informed that we stand on firm ground. So we look forward to future discussion on this, but we just, again, would ask you, please don't do the third reading tonight and allow us to have our legal counsel here at the next regular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Jerry Stahl. I own the property 18181 Haberton Road and 18177 Haberton Road, which is directly across the street from the proposed Genesis countertop industrial manufacturing plant. I come to you today to ask you to not approve the Genesis countertop CUP. Justice Bond yesterday said to me that he could not find a legal reason for voting no on the approval, and mentioned, as a couple other of you, that he was concerned the circuit court would overturn a no decision. I gave him legal reasons verbally and in writing so that he could vote no, and I also sent those to all of you. Judge Wood, I apologize, I did not send one to you. You should vote out of the law and not fear of the Quorum Court. Section 11200, item 4, states that the proposed use has to be compatible with the surrounding area. In fact, at the last quorum meeting, CETA, who is a senior member of the planning board, stated, and I quote, "A granite countertop production facility business is not inherently compatible with the surrounding area." Not compatible. Senior member of the planning board. The reference, in case you want to look it up, is 25 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. So I ask you, how can the Quorum Court justify approval when going against their own law, their own rules that state it must be like and compatible? No rational person could say a granite countertop industrial manufacturing facility is remotely like an upscale subdivision, an eatery, a brewery, or an upscale winery. It's not even close. And the member of the planning board verified that it was not compatible. Secondly, item 6 states that it cannot approve if it substantially diminishes and impairs property values with the surrounding area. Let me put it like this. Put a granite countertop manufacturing facility in your subdivisions and just see how fast people start moving out and how quickly your property value is going down. If this was happening in your neighborhood, I would bet my,
10 seconds, Mr. Stahl.
that you would have to recuse yourself so that you could fight it. We did not know, like these gentlemen said, until Monday about this. We haven't had time to prepare. Our counsel can't represent us because he's out of state. So I also request that there is not a third reading made of this Quorum Court.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl.
And is my 3 minutes
The time
done?
is done.
Okay.
Yes.
Please think about it. I ask you to vote according to your laws. Do the right thing.
Next.
My name is Brett Ralston. I live at 22042 Dogwood Circle in Springdale, Arkansas. It's actually outside the Springdale city limits. And I am lakefront on Beaver Lake in the Washington County quadrant. And it's come to my attention that you guys are aware of the quarry that's out there, and I know that's for another time and place. But you have the purview of the ordinance that is the notification ordinance, which is the half-mile ordinance. I'm sure you're all aware of the half-mile ordinance for large-scale development. What I would suggest to you is that that is out of date. It's out of date. And it was done, I think, in 2006. It was put in. They thought, well, half a mile will be pretty good. except for when you have a large-scale development of the nature of a quarry that's digging down deep and blasting. You have it radiated from the epicenter, where homes 2 miles outside of that epicenter are being affected by this large-scale development or by any expansion or by any future, whether it be our particular site-specific quarry or any additional quarries. So what I'm asking you to consider is to extending the notification from a half mile to 2 miles on the notification for any large-scale development that would involve quarrying, mining, and what you have basically listed here, to move it from, it was originally 300 feet in 2003, 300 feet. In 2006, it became a half a mile. Within 1 mile of this particular quarry, where the blasting, where the road conditions are deplorable, you have 3 schools. You have the Sonora schools are within a 2-mile radius. You have Monitor School, which is within a 2-mile radius. You have over 200 residents that are just outside of the half mile but are affected by this high-impact quarry that need to be notified. So what I would ask you to do is to change this ordinance, and it wouldn't take much, to make it site-specific for quarries or any type of that large-scale development operation that's going to require blasting and excessive wear and tear on the roads, Your Honor, to include a 2-mile notification, to also include these schools. There are 3 churches within a 2-mile radius. There are the 3 public schools, and the school buses have the ingress, egress. There's only one way in, one way out. They have to use that particular area. So the road users, by ordinance, are required to be notified. It says that the county judge shall notify any and all people who use those roads.
10 seconds, Mr. Ralston.
What's that?
10 seconds.
Yeah. So what I'm asking you to do is to extend that to a 2-mile radius on the ordinance for the notification. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How are you?
Good evening. My name is Freddie Valley. I'm the owner of the Genesis Countertops project. About 6 months ago, we purchased this property with the dream to open our small family business. We chose this building based on property availability because it is an existing building which has held many commercial uses before. We believe it is very well suited for our business, and we like the fact that it's centrally located in Northwest Arkansas. We did a lot of research before and after we became the owners of this property. We noticed that there are similar existing businesses nearby, such as an event center, a brewery, a granite fabrication shop, a metal fabrication shop existing already nearby our building. We've met with county officials several times, and we have been preparing our building and choosing the right equipment to operate our business in the best possible manner. We have already consulted and will continue to consult with safety professionals to ensure the safety of everyone. We have also conducted a noise study, which you should have received. If not, I have extra copies here if anybody would like one. This study shows that our business will not be harm to our neighbors in regards to noise. As you know, we are trying to run a legitimate business, and since the beginning, we felt a strong desire to go through the proper channels. And so we hope that this means something in the process of approval. We have communicated with our neighbors to try to explain to them how we will run our business in a respectable manner. However, to this date, we have not been able to find a way to please everyone. It has been a long and painful 6 months process, and here we are again, asking that you please give us your vote and grant us the opportunity to open our business. I promise you this, if I thought for a second that my business will harm anyone, any of my neighbors, I would not be here. I do promise you this. The reason we have been persistent is because we believe in our dreams and this business plays a part in those dreams. We also strongly believe that small businesses
Time has come
is
to
what
an
keep our
end.
local economy and America as a whole moving forward.
Excuse me, time has come to an end. JP Yanez,
I vote to suspend the rules
you
and
got
extend the time.
motions to suspend the rules, to extend the time? The time?
2 minutes,
You got one behind.
so
Only need 30 seconds.
5 minutes. Oh, no, 3 minutes.
Okay, 3
Yeah.
minutes. Finish yours, and then you have your last one. We got second?
Second.
Who was the second? JP Hires. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right.
As I was saying, the reason we've been persistent is because we believe in our project, and we believe that small businesses is what keeps the local economy and America as a whole moving forward. Know this, and with all due respect to my neighbors, my neighbors would not have the house they own and the life they live if they did not have a dream, an opportunity, or a place to work. And this is what we're asking for. No less, no more. Give me an opportunity for a place to work. Please vote tonight to support my business, and please help me to get started with my project. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next. Two minutes, 17 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good
I was
evening.
here last time. My name is Stephen Raybach, and I'm here really as a neighbor and as a concerned citizen who I just feel I want the right thing to happen here. I also am a vested interest. I have one of the two properties that adjoin. There's two of us here. Don Ferguson spoke last time too. We're both in support of this. So I think we have a little bit of an anomaly going on here. I would hope that you have the same question in your mind as I have in mine. Why are the two closest adjoining properties who have the same interests in favor of this, and another group, a mile, even up to 2 miles away in the subdivision, is opposing? In my mind, there's a piece of information missing, or several pieces missing, and I'd just like to go over some history here and maybe provide you with some more information. And I know credibility is important, and I didn't go over a resume. I know some people do that, but I've been in business all my life. I've run multiple companies. Logic was my specialty. I invented the solution for Y2K years ago and patented it with IBM. I hold multiple patents in multiple countries, and my thought process is fairly rational.
1 minute, Mr.
on
Raybach.
this. I sold this property. I listed it a little over 2 years ago, and I had two offers, Freddie's and another one for $70,000 more. The other one was from a construction company. They would have irregular hours, unpredictable noises, traffic patterns. I like Freddie's because there's already somebody out there doing granite. There's other businesses out there that weren't mentioned before. There's a metal shop half-mile away. There's a blacksmith a half-mile away. There's a lot of businesses going on out there. I had one other serious party for 3 months. I met with a realtor. They called a buyer. That buyer and their parties went through all my properties. They're very serious in buying it. That was the first one. And that other party is opposing tonight. That's Gene Long was the other party interested in putting an event center in there. And I just wanted to share with you all the other relevant potential factors going on here. We're sincere in support of Mr. Valley and
Thank you,
his
Mr.
effort.
Raybach.
Thank you.
The public comment piece is done at this point. You'll have another time during the rest of the meeting, depending on where it is. All right? Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I've read the minutes and I move approval.
All right, we got approval of the minutes, second. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, minutes approved. On the county judge report, we got a long agenda. You have a disposal report in your packet already. There was a question or a request to give an update on the solar as well as on the, what was the other one? We'll have that at the county services committee meeting. We'll walk through that. And so again, Black History Month is underway. Want to make sure you guys are out there participating. And then again, I want to make sure I extend my Valentine wishes to all across the county. Unfinished business, item 8, JP Harbison.
Okay, attorney, Brian Lester, will you please read ordinance number 8 by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit allowed by the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustments for the Genesis countertops and accessories.
Since it's on second reading, unless we have a motion to suspend the rules, I suggest that we wait till the next meeting to act on this. Thank you.
Second.
You don't have to do that. It's automatically moved to the third. Item 9, emergency ordinance ratifying conditional use permit, J.P. Deacons.
County Attorney Lester, will you please read this ordinance by title only?
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for Kings Ransom RV Park.
So we approved this CUP last fall. This business owners developed this, and now they're coming back for their I'm sorry, excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I have the wrong RV park.
Yes.
District 5 is quite the site for RV parks right now, so. Anyways, this moved through the planning board last month. I was at that meeting. There was some public comment, some citizen comment about some roads, but I think all that's been resolved, so I make a motion we pass this ordinance.
Got a motion to move on to second?
No, sorry.
So it's on,
Emergency clause, I believe, right?
no. So we got a motion. You got a second? Second. Any other discussion? Any public comments? All right, Ms. Patty, take the roll. Pardon me? Yes, read it how much.
I did.
He did.
Yeah.
I was trying to catch up. Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deacon.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson. Susan Cunningham. And Derek Thomas.
All right, that one passes. J.P. Madison.
I wanted to make clear to the folks that were here on the countertop CUP that it will not be on this month. It will be on next. So you all should feel free to leave unless you just like to see how the sausage is made.
Oh, no, don't you. Please stay.
I just wanted to make sure they knew that they could go.
We appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care. Yeah, I'm wondering where they were waiting. Jim Duncan.
You know how to clear out a room. Apparently just half of it. I wanna go.
Okay, item 11, no, 10. Item 10, J.P. Pond.
Brian Lester, could you read the title, please?
An ordinance changing the title of deputy coroner in the county coroner's budget for 2020.
This is not going to, this is not gonna, call for, the coroner to have to ask for more money. He saw it in his budget, and, I moved to, suspend rules and take this to second reading.
There's only one.
There's only one reading on it, move to pass.
We got a motion and a second by J.P. Madison. Any discussion? J.P. Yanez.
I'm kind of concerned because I can't believe that all of a sudden that we're aware that this race needs to happen. And somehow
Give me 1 second. Can we get the door pulled, please? Thank you, Judge.
like, just logically, I just can't believe that the coroner would not think of this race previously during the budget process. And so we set a precedence of no raises of high amounts, and I think right now, without the benefits, the raise 18.4 or 5. So I'm just concerned about the inconsistency of giving raises and the precedents we have set during our budget season. That's the only thing, like somehow we have failed the coroner, that he was not able to come up here during budget time to announce this raise that he needed. And it's just the inconsistency and the unequitable processes that we have. We need to really look at that.
Thank you, J.P. Yanez. Any other discussion? J.P. Pine?
Seeing as how he's here and some of the people on the court may have not been at the committee meeting, I'd like to ask for Roger to come up and give us a very brief,
Well, if there's no questions, are there any other questions or any questions for the coroner?
Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I just want to make sure that next budget season, that they're able to come up here and speak up of what raises they need for their employees, because we did have a highly debatable raises during our budget season, and I can see as a manager how I would wait till now to ask for this raise. And so I just want to make sure that we're due process for everyone.
Got it. Any other discussion? Public comment? Public comment? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. No. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Yes. Andrea Jenkins. No. Suki Hires. Yes. Sue Madison. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
No.
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Derek Thomas.
Is that a pass, Ms. Patty?
Yes.
So that does pass, that ordinance does pass. J.P. Harbison, item 11.
Lester, please read ordinance number 11.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the jail fund in the amount of $16,298.06 and appropriating the amount of $16,298.06 from the jail fund to the jail operations and maintenance budget for 2020.
This money came from SWEPCO for energy efficiencies that they put in down at the jail. I move that we pass ordinance number 11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments?
Hello, my name is Isabel Messina. I live here in Fayetteville and I study at the U of A. My question is, what kind of efficient upgrades are going to be used, are going to be added to the facility? Do you know?
They had a list of things, changing light bulbs, water, had an agreement with SWEPCO to run their generators down there at certain times of day when there was a high usage in that area.
Okay.
So
Do you know if
there were
there's-
quite a few things that they did, yes.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you. Any other public comments? And again, that's an opportunity just to make the comment, not a Q&A. But thank you. Was it Isabella? Thank you. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Yes. Andrea Jenkins. Yes. Suki Hires. Yes. Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Derek Thomas. It passes.
All right, that ordinance passes. Item 12, J.P. Harbison.
Attorney Lester, will you please read ordinance number 13, or number 12, excuse me, 12.
An ordinance appropriating the total amount of $39,468 in the Veteran Services budget for 2020.
Okay, this was presented and discussed during the budget process, but somehow there was a computer glitch and it did not get put into the 2020 budget. So therefore, I move that we appropriate this money.
We have a motion by J.P. Harbison, second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Susan Cunningham. Derek Thomas. It passes.
All right, that ordinance passes. Item 13,
Attorney.
J.P. Harbison.
Lester, will you please read number 13?
An ordinance appropriating the total amount of $91,049 in the Collectors Automation Fund budget for 2020.
Okay, this was another glitch. This was discussed during the budget process, but for some reason, our collector moved a position from the general fund to the automation fund. So I move that we pass number 13.
All right, we got a motion by J.P. Harbison, a second by J.P. Duncan. Any discussion? J.P. Lemming?
I just want to make sure we fix this glitch that keeps coming up, because this happened last year and it's happening this year. This glitch needs to go away. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Susan Cunningham. Derek Thomas. It passes.
All right, that ordinance passes, and I do hope with the new software system that we'll catch more of that, but again, you have human beings, and with the number of entries, I think we talked about that, you will have some of that, but yes, the focus will be perfect, right? We gotta work toward that. Item 15, J.P. Harbison.
Attorney Lester, would you please read item 15? 14, excuse me, I don't have my glasses on.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $10,000 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund for 2020 and appropriating $10,000 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the ADR grant budget for 2019-2020.
This is a grant. I move that we pass number 14.
Second.
A motion to approve by J.P. Harbison, second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? J.P. Jenkins?
Thank you. So I can't quite recall what all was associated with this grant as far as funding. Is it in the packet? I didn't know if it had any specifications.
I don't know if sheriffs or Sharon, is that mostly mediators?
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
It's mediators.
It's so that they won't go to the court.
Sure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Patrick Deacon. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Susan Cunningham. Derek Thomas. It passes.
All right, item 15 passes. Item 14 passes. Item 15, J.P. Harbison.
Attorney Lester, would you please read item, whichever item we're
15.
on?
15.
Number 15.
Item 15.
An ordinance authorizing the county judge to enter into a contract for services with the Association of Arkansas Counties and appropriating $5,874 to be paid for membership therein.
This is our membership in the Association of Arkansas Counties. I move that we pass number 15.
Motion to approve, J.P. Harbison, seconded by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham, Derek Thomas. This passes.
All right, item 15.1 passes. Item 16, J.P. Harbison.
Attorney Lester, would you please read item 16?
An ordinance appropriating $100,000 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the other professional services line item in the Quorum Court budget for 2020.
This is the money for our criminal justice study. I move that we pass this.
We have a motion to pass 16.1, second by J.P. Jenkins. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead. Come on.
Janelle Smiley from District 7, West Weddington and Fayetteville. My concern is that even though we need to study the overcrowding of the jail and those issues, this is yet $100,000 that we're taking out of an already skinny reserve. In the last 5 years, we've gone from 15 million down to less than 4 million. And now we're going to do another 100,000, and that's very concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. No. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
No.
Ann Harbison. Butch Pond.
No.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Derek Thomas. It receives
There does.
11
Item
yes.
16.1 passes. Item 17, J.P. Harbison.
Attorney Lester, would you please read item 17?
An ordinance appropriating $9,045 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the jail budget for 2020.
This is to pay for our ombudsman study in helping to release those people eligible from the jail. I move that we pass for 17.
Motion to pass 17.1, second by J.P. Hires. Jenkins, J.P. Jenkins. Discussion, J.P. Madison.
Yes, just to clarify, this is not really new funding. This was the leftover of what was budgeted last year that wasn't spent. So our ombudsman has been very cost effective. So this is actually not really new funds, but just sort of moving what was left over from last year to this year.
Any other discussion? J.P. Duncan?
So I just did the math for those who weren't able to attend the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee meeting earlier this week. Ombudsman has spent about $6,000 so far that we've paid him essentially, and our return on that was about $40,000 worth of jail space. So it's been a good ROI, and I'm hopeful that he continues that ROI as he continues his work.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
No.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Derek Thomas. Passes.
Okay, item 17.1 passes. Item 18, J.P. Harbison.
Attorney Brian Lester, would you please read 18?
An ordinance anticipating carryover and revenues totaling $2,405,437.04 in various funds and appropriating $2,378,649.03 from various funds to various budget line items for 2020.
This is last year's money moved into different line items, and most of these are grants. So therefore, I move that we pass 18.
Got a motion to pass item 18.1, a second by J.P. Duncan. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deacon.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
And Derek Thomas. It passes.
All right, item 18.1 passes. All right, we have a resolution, J.P. Deakins, and that's a resolution, reads one time, obviously a majority vote. J.P. Deakins?
County Attorney Lester, would you read this resolution in its entirety, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Give me just a moment. Be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution to address the issue of housing federal inmates in the Washington County Detention Center. Whereas the government of Washington County, Arkansas is of and for all the people of Washington County and is committed to the safety and well-being of the people of Washington County. And whereas the Washington County Jail with 710 beds is above capacity and has been for some time. And whereas we acknowledge the diligent efforts and commitment to easing and finding solutions to this over-jail capacity and crowding by our county sheriff, his staff, and other elected officials, including this court, and we commend them for their hard work and dedication. And whereas despite these intense efforts and policy changes that have been implemented, the Washington County Jail remains over capacity. And whereas we feel that our first and foremost responsibility is to the people of Washington County, Arkansas, by whom we were elected, and for whom we took an oath of office to serve. We are aware of our obligations to properly fund the jail as required by Arkansas law and as fiduciaries for the people of Washington County. Arkansas Code Annotated 1414802A, subsection 2, requires that the county government, acting through the County Quorum Court, provide necessary services for its citizens, our emphasis, including law enforcement protection services and the custody of persons accused or convicted of crimes. And whereas the Washington County Sheriff and then county judge entered into an intergovernmental agreement, detention services, the agreement effective December 1st, 2015. The agreement provided for housing, safekeeping, and substance of federal detainees in accordance with terms and conditions set forth therein. The agreement can be terminated in writing by either party for any reason by giving at least 30 calendar days notice in advance of such termination. And whereas the housing of these federal detainees under the agreement has increased substantially over the last 3 years, increasing from total bed days of 9,809 for the period of January 1st through September of 2017 to 20,187 bed days for the 9-month period January to September 2019. And whereas solving the jail overcrowding and the causes of overcrowding is a journey that will require long-term and ongoing commitment from this and future quorum courts, and there are steps that can be taken immediately to ease the overcrowding in the Washington County Detention Center. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas. The County Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas respectfully resolves hereby to request and support the Washington County Sheriff to take all necessary steps to exercise immediately the powers of termination under the Intergovernmental Agreement Detention Services, the agreement described above. Let it be further resolved that this resolution is made for the purpose of ensuring a safe and healthy environment at the Washington County Detention Center for law enforcement protection services and the custody of persons accused or convicted of crimes to comply with Arkansas Code Annotated 1414802, subsection A, subsection 2.
Thank you, County Attorney Lester. This was brought by our Jails Committee earlier this week, and I want everyone to know that I bring this resolution, the next one, a continued effort to address our crowding issue at our jail. These resolutions were a citizen-led effort, and I want to say thank you very much to that. I think they're very well written. I also want to say thank you to my co-sponsors, J.P. Yanez, J.P. Duncan, and since our committee meeting, J.P. Jenkins and J.P. Hires have also joined on as co-sponsors.
As with many new ideas, there's been a lot of misinformation put out regarding these resolutions. I'm asking for trust when I express my goals with these resolutions. I am sincere and transparent with my intentions. My goal is to publicly state as a quorum court that our sheriff and his department, who do a wonderful job, have our full support in all their efforts to reduce our inmate population at the detention center by any means necessary. These resolutions are meant to help, and I've been a little taken aback by the pushback we've received, specifically with regard to this one. While we wait on the results of our judicial study, see the effects of additional funded prosecutors and public defenders on our justice system, and study the options of the old jail facility, there are immediate steps that we can take to reduce our jail population, and in doing so, improve the safety and conditions for our inmates as well as the detention officers in the Washington County Detention Center. The bottom line is we are leasing jail space that we do not have at the expense of officer and public safety. These resolutions are in no way meant to be an overall solution to our jail crowding or a measure to stop discussion of what is possible with jail expansion or the correct move for Washington County long-term. We will still have to be extremely dedicated to implementing a long-term plan. This is an immediate step to ensure the safety and well-being of our detention officers and inmates, period. If we have lost sight of safety being our top priority, I'm worried about our goals as a quorum court. I know one of the main arguments of this action is fiscal, and I want to know that is a very important argument. But overpopulation of our detention center is a threat to the health and safety of our officers as well as our inmates, and I would like to know the cost of that. Our overcrowding puts unnecessary burdens on our buildings and mechanical systems. We haven't yet quantified that cost. And overcrowding is preventing our staff and volunteers from providing critical programs and assistance to inmates at a high cost to our future as a county. I understand that due to crowding, any of the programs being offered inmates are sporadic and intermittent at best. And we have an example of that with the sheriff feeling the need to suspend the work release program. These realities turn our back on our commitment to our citizens and our inmates. The federal contract also puts additional stipulations and requirements on our county regarding housing, transport, and medical treatment of federal inmates. Of course, that comes at higher cost. And this commitment is growing. As the resolution says, it's doubled in the last 2 years. When all this is added up, I have serious doubts if we're even coming ahead fiscally at $62 a day. I want to remind the court we have a funding mechanism when we've partnered with the cities to pay their per capita fee. And I expect the cities will have commentary and come with us and work again with this funding mechanism, and I really welcome those conversations. And I want us to consider this. Even if we had an agreed upon expansion plan today, we must still secure funding and construct that plan. That process could take a couple of years. Are we to sit here in the interim with the safety risk when there are options right in front of us that we could take? I also sent the justices a letter earlier this afternoon from Chief of Police Hyatt from Elm Springs. I want to highlight a couple sections of that. If you look with me about halfway down the page. What you have before you are resolutions to encourage the Sheriff's Office to free up contracted beds so that we can utilize our jail to the maximum potential. I unequivocally support these resolutions as a police chief and a Washington County taxpayer. As I said previously, we need an expansion to our jail. But even if that was approved today, our needs for those beds right now and the resolutions are the only viable options for the immediate relief. Skipping down to the bottom. The bottom line is that there are people who need to be in jail and are not because we lack space to house them. This is happening right now, and these resolutions are the only thing that might give us immediate relief and may allow us to continue to enact, experiment, and explore alternatives in doing that. We may get a clearer picture of our needs going forward and pursue a long-term solution that hopefully most of our community can support. Space is needed in our jail for our own county's law enforcement efforts. This would make Washington County safer. Sheriff Helder said himself at our committee meeting, if these resolutions were passed, they would be backfilled, any beds that were opened up. That, to me, explains that we have the need in this county for those beds. Finally, this is not about turning our backs on the partnership with other law enforcement agencies, and to suggest otherwise is counterproductive. I would hope other agencies would recognize that we have problems that we are trying to safely work through at the moment. and hopefully our efforts will allow us to come back to the team even stronger. For all these reasons and many more, I am asking my fellow justices to please join me in prioritizing specifically the safety and well-being of our detention officers and inmates, but also the safety and needs of Washington County and citizens generally in passing this resolution. So I make a motion that we pass this resolution tonight.
Got a motion to pass the resolution, a second by J.P. Jenkins. Discussion, J.P. Madison, then J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. So I've really sort of been very torn on this issue all week, and I think everybody knows that I usually have an opinion, and I usually say it very loudly. We've heard from a lot of citizens on this issue, and I will say that the overwhelming majority of the citizens that I've heard from, including several in my district, are opposed to the jail expansion and therefore in support of these two resolutions. They want to explore alternatives to a $38 million jail expansion, especially in the shape of criminal justice reforms. I want to say to these citizens that I hear you loud and clear. I get it. I share your concerns. But understand that the people that are asking us to expand the jail, we got some emails on that too. One today was very blunt. Do your job, expand the jail. The jail committee hasn't seen fit to let this full court vote on that. So we're sort of stuck. And this is one of the first things that's come out of the jail committee where we've been able to vote. But many of the same citizens that we heard from have said very clearly the federal government is not our problem. I understand Sheriff Hilder's concerns for the larger law enforcement community, but the federal government has enough resources to take care of itself. The daily rate they are paying is not enough. And I would like to see the sheriff, if anything happens, talk about doubling that rate. Let's see how many federal prisoners we have if we double that rate. But we should definitely not be subsidizing the feds and allowing them a cut rate on what it actually costs us. I want to speak to why I think we're actually in this crisis, and I think the fault lies with the state of Arkansas for why we're in this crisis. The state tells us what's a crime and what's not. And in every legislative session, more acts are criminalized than decriminalized. And that then falls to our law enforcement and our prosecutors and our public defenders to have to deal with that. Our prosecutors and public defenders are not adequately funded at the state level, which means that we have to foot the bill to make sure that they are maybe not appropriately funded, but at least better funded than the state has seen fit. Delays at the state crime lab keep our people in jail longer, and the state only pays us $30 a day when we know that it costs closer to $70 a day. Even when a defendant becomes truly a state responsibility, the state doesn't even pay us for half of that. The legislature can sit down in Little Rock and sign off on large tax cuts at the state level by then making us face a harsh reality of raising taxes or going to our citizens to ask for a sales tax for what has effectively become a state jail. And this has to stop. But I also have to respect the decisions and wishes of our sheriff, who is basically being forced to undertake a decision with 48 hours worth of discussion. He doesn't agree with it, and I have to ask if we as JPs know better than our sheriff, given his long history in law enforcement. I also am concerned that it feels like we're not working together on this, that we're saying we know better, sheriff, and we're gonna tell you what to do. And I've always found that in county government, it works better if we're working in a partnership and trying to reach a common goal together. We haven't heard the results of our criminal justice study yet. As it's been pointed out, we're spending a lot of money on it. And we don't know what they're gonna say. And so I don't know quite why we're rushing into this when we haven't heard from the experts. We're paying a lot of money to tell us what we should do. There's also a question about if we do this part with the state, whether we'll have to pay for the transport or the state will have to pay for the transport. And I don't know the answer to that. And that's a significant question. But what I do know, and what's ultimately gonna motivate my decisions tonight, is that in the fall of 2019, our county treasurer made projections that if we canceled our contract with the federal government, it would cost the county $1.55 million. And if we canceled our state or put them with other facilities, it would cost us $1.45 million. That's $3 million that we're considering asking the sheriff to spend immediately tonight, and we've had no discussion of where we will come up with those funds. If we commit to that loss of $3 million, we will be out of reserves in 2 years or more. Yes, $3 million is a lot cheaper than a $38 million jail expansion, but in 10 years, we would have paid for the jail. So I have to think about, why aren't we discussing as part of this process where we're going to find $3 million? I can't imagine making a $3 million decision without talking about the revenue replacement. And my big concern is that we're going to try to pass this off on our cities again. My district is entirely within the city of Fayetteville. I was very opposed when we decided to charge our cities, not only for their misdemeanors, but for their felonies, for the time it takes us to decide whether to press charges against them or not. My mayor has been out of town in the 48 hours that we would have been able to discuss this, so he's not even been able to weigh in. But that's my concern, is that we're going to pass this $3 million cost onto our cities. So where I've settled on this is that it's premature. We've got to discuss it more. I am not opposed to it. I would like to see the feds out of our jail. Not so sure about the state folks, but I can't make that decision knowing it will cost us money that we do not have. I cannot ask the sheriff to make that decision, and I can't vote to lose $3 million that will probably send this county into bankruptcy. So we've got to work on solutions. This is part of the discussion, but it cannot be made in isolation. So I'm going to have to vote no tonight.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. My questions are a little smaller, but I need to call on someone from the sheriff's office to help me understand who this population is exactly. Are our federal prisoners from Maine, Missouri, Oklahoma? Are some of them from Arkansas? Are some of them from this area? If they are local, keep in mind that while they're in that jail, they have the benefit of family nearby. And we've discussed before what a burden it puts on families to have to travel a long way to visit inmates in prison. And that's a huge part of helping people stay on or get back on a right path. So please, Sheriff, could you tell us a little bit about the population we're talking about?
So as of Friday, I think when we first became aware of the potential resolution proposal, we did a snapshot of all the federal detainees that we had in our facility. I think there were 88, and all but 11 were being prosecuted from the Fayetteville district. These are all local people. If you were to drop down to Sebastian County, you might find a different story. Due to the interstate going through, due to the closure of the federal courthouse over in Boone County, and the judge in that district, there's some folks here from the U.S. Attorney's Office that might speak to this, but their snapshot's a little different than ours. But ours are primarily, almost 100% are from right here. These are the people that have committed egregious crimes against our children, against our citizens, against our institutions, bank robbers, murderers, pedophiles, child pornography. These are also people that our local police departments, Fayetteville, Springdale, those of you that are representing cities, have requested that the U.S. Attorney file these charges and prosecute on their behalf because they can get enhanced sentences because of the violent behavior of the people that they're prosecuting. So, in answer to your question, they're all from here.
Thank you, Sheriff. I mean, I didn't know, but now I do, and I'm glad you're here tonight because this really does concern me because these are our people. They did bad things, but someday they're coming back here, and those ties to family and those connections need to be part of their hoped-for healing, we might say, and they pay. These are our best paying customers or tenants, you might say. So I think if we're going to start weaning down our population, let's not pick on local people who are paying. So, thank you for those answers.
Thanks, Sheriff.
I cannot support the resolution now.
Thanks, Sheriff. Let me, other discussions, J.P. Duncan, and then J.P. Pond, and then J.P. Johnson. There is discussion, when we'll go to the public, we'll bring in.
No.
Not yet. Unless they have a question for you, but.
So just a couple comments. The first is that a resolution is non-binding. So a resolution is recommendation. I can't tell the sheriff to do anything. He's an elected official. He gets to make his own decisions. So this is our court suggesting an action, and the sheriff will get to make a decision on how he wants to take that suggestion. He can say, no, thank you. He can say, absolutely. He can do whatever he wants. So I want to start off by saying that this court does not have the power to tell the sheriff what to do. Second piece is it's comical to think that this is a rushed thing. There has been overcrowding at our jail for years now, and it's been quoted to be at crisis level. Crisis level. And all of a sudden, now it's a rushed idea. No, this has been an issue for years and years. We've got 100 people sleeping on the floor. It's time to take action. So to quote someone wise that is close to me, tough decisions are not popular. This is a tough decision that we're pushing. What's interesting is I've been on the court for a little over a year now. I've been on Juvenile Law Enforcement Committee, specifically led by Lance Johnson, and we've done a couple things in our time here. So other courts have done, I'm not sure what, but at least since I've been at JP, we've initiated a study to better understand jail and law enforcement, and understand criminal justice in general. Second thing we've done is institute the interlocal agreement conversation between the judge and the different municipalities. And now the third thing is we're recommending these resolutions to get people off the floor. So what I want to be clear is that this court has taken action, and we're furthering requests to take that action and get people off the floor immediately. And this is speaking to both resolutions. I get these people are local, but guess what? There's 100 people on the floor. You got to make a tough decision here. The second piece is we're going to talk about the state inmates next. So I know we're on the federal inmate resolution currently, but the state inmate, they're paying less than half of what it costs to house them. That's bad math, people. That doesn't make any sense. So that's the low-hanging fruit, if you ask me. That's my comments. Thanks.
Was that J.P. Pond, and then J.P. Johnson, and then J.P. Ecke?
I might have missed something. I was out briefly, but I'm interested in hearing from these representatives from the federal government.
They'll be coming.
Okay,
So
thank you.
You guys get discussion first. J.P. Johnson?
Yeah, I have a question for the sheriff. I'm not sure I understood your comment. I've been under the understanding that the federal detainees and the state detainees were folks that have been convicted. Is that correct, or are part of those pretrial?
The state are convicted. They're awaiting bed space at the Department of Corrections. When you're talking about the federals, for the most part, they are pretrial, and they are awaiting their day in court here. There are some, this is a progression of movement, so that periodically they'll ship those out that have been convicted to wherever their federal facilities are. But primarily, this group are pretrial.
J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. Quick comments on Amendment 55, and I'm glad that my colleague, Justice Duncan, tapped on this. We do not have the authority to micromanage or tell any elected official how to administer his department. Absolutely none. That's encroaching on their powers and their duties, their constitutional duties. Number two, I was against the $100,000 study because after the study is done, the judicial system does not have to take their advice. So it's a 50-50 crapshoot. We can spend $100,000 and say, well, maybe, thank you very much, but I'm not going to listen to a word you say. And that's reality. That's why I was against it. A lot of these measures we're already doing in our sheriff's department. We're already trying to do through our public defender, and so forth. Third point, action. The previous court voted, I believe unanimously, to get this on the ballot for the citizens to decide whether or not they wanted a jail expansion or not. The first action taken by this court in the jail and law enforcement meeting was to table that. It was tabled, and we couldn't bring it before we had to do it before February to get it on the March ballot. So here we are. It's up to the citizens to decide whether or not they want a jail. The people that I talk to all want safe communities, and it's alarming to them that people are being let out. So this is a resolution. I'm not in favor of it because we are trying to tell the sheriff what to do and how to do it. If you want to take action, put it to a vote and let the voters decide whether or not they want a jail expansion. We can go private jails. Well, fine. Then let's go let a private company come in and manage the jail for us. We can do a regional jail. That's going to take the governor to get the judges together so that way we can do that. Let the voters decide. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Eki. J.P. Johnson?
Did I hear that the previous court voted unanimously to put it on to the voters? Because at the meeting I was at in December of 18, that is absolutely not what happened. They had the opportunity and they passed. They kicked the can to this court.
That's correct. They
J.P.
voted for
Eki?
something else. You're right. You're
Okay.
right.
Any other discussion? J.P. Pond, and then we'll let the public.
There's one thing, and hopefully, you know, my memory's not really as short as some folks might think, but I've expressed the urgency a few times about we need to get something done about the expansion. Whether we have a study or not, it's obvious we need an expansion. But there's one thing that I heard a comment nearly a year ago about how ridiculous it was that we had such an urgent need for expansion, and that was, well, if we started it today, we wouldn't have it done for 2 years. Well, a year ago, that was said. I just kind of think maybe I'm not the only person in the room that's heard that statement. And what I'm putting that together with, the folks, the citizen folks that helped you in this, writing this resolution, they're not for expansion anyway. The bottom line is, with them, just we don't want a bigger jail, just turn them loose. So, I'm obviously opposed to this. And I also, you know, I do appreciate the idea that maybe some of my statements are just maybe inaccurate. Instead of just calling me a bald-faced liar, thank you, sir. That's all.
J.P. Deacons?
I welcome and work with any citizens, and I welcome and work with any of my JP colleagues, and I try not to stereotype or put people in pigeonholes or judge them on misread facts or assumptions. So I want everybody to know that. I need to clear the record on what I think is an inappropriate comment. Thank you.
Public comments. Sheriff, you want to come, and then public comments.
The buttons.
It's on. You turned it off.
I just turned it off. My name's Carol Witter. I live at 501 Holly in Fayetteville. I just wanted to say I fully support this resolution, and I think J.P. Deacons is right The overcrowding is at a crisis level, period. And if we're housing people and it costs more to house them than they are paying, that's a deficit. That's not an income. I also want to clarify a couple of things. 3 different times I have tallied every single detainee in the Washington County Detention Center. And when I tallied them, I saw federal prisoners from North Dakota, from Texas, from all over the country. I did not see just local people in there. I have a daughter who right now is at West Memphis Correctional Facility. She's a Fayetteville citizen. As far as I know, she's the only Fayetteville citizen in the women's facility in West Memphis. We tried to get a transfer. She has not seen her 5-year-old daughter, who turned 5, for 10 months. And we were told we can't. Why is she the only one? So we're driving 5.5 hours one way to see my daughter, who was a detainee in the Washington County Detention Center. And so I think that we need to look at, as far as I can tell, and tomorrow I'm going to go back and tally every single detainee at Washington County. And it lists, where they're from. And I did not see that they were local. And again, I support anything to reduce the crisis of overcrowding. We've been told it is a terrible crisis, it's a health and safety issue for everyone. And so anything that we can do to address this crisis, we need to do, and not call people names or question the motivations of people that really want to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Sheriff? Yeah.
Well, at this time, Judge, I just for a perspective outside of this discussion, I thought it might be beneficial to have our law enforcement, our criminal justice partners to describe to the court what this looks like from their purview on the federal side. So Clay Folks, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Western District, is here. Chief Dwayne Allen with the U.S. Marshal Service for the Western District is here, just to briefly describe to you what this impact looks like from that perspective, instead of hearing it from me, okay?
Okay.
So,
Can both of you guys come and we can put 2 chairs and you guys can share whatever comments? Chief, can you grab the other chair?
I'll be happy to stand. I think we're good to stand. That's all right.
No. We need you to talk into the microphone. Again, introduce yourself and what your responsibilities, and then go ahead and share what your comments and.
Good evening. My name is Clay Folks. I'm the acting United States Attorney for the Western District of Arkansas. Did you want to introduce yourself, or you want me to go ahead and?
Yep.
You go ahead. Okay. Sheriff Helder indicated to me that this meeting was occurring tonight and just wanted some input from me on what we do and how we do our jobs here in the Western District of Arkansas. And I'll be as brief as I can, but I'll start with who we are. As I stated, I'm the acting United States Attorney. We represent the government's interest in the 34 counties on the western side of Arkansas. We have 18 U.S. attorneys that practice in the criminal division in our office, and we have 21 total attorneys that work in our office. We prosecute all manner of federal criminal offenses throughout the Western District of Arkansas. That's everything from federal tax evasion all the way to violent crimes and federal firearms offenses and career offender type offenses. I'd like to just speak for a moment on why I feel this partnership with the Washington County Sheriff's Office is important to our mission, which is to reduce crime and to make the Western District of Arkansas a safer place and protect it from criminal activity. Because of our limited number of prosecutors, we have 18 criminal prosecutors for 34 counties. We are forced to choose the worst of the worst offenders to prosecute in federal court. But that's also important to note because it means that we can leverage our federal resources and our federal sentencing guidelines and our mandatory minimum sentences to address the worst criminal conduct that is occurring in the Western District of Arkansas. And so I'd like to speak to that just very briefly.
A few examples of some of the federal inmates that are present here in the Washington County Jail when we did this survey on Friday that the sheriff referenced during his comments here. 15 of those federal defendants that were part of the 88 that Sheriff Helder mentioned are child exploitation and child abuse offenders that are prosecuted in federal court because of the mandatory minimum sentences that they face, because of the severe sentencing guidelines that are available to us, and because of the fact that the Bureau of Prisons does not have parole eligibility for such offenders. These are some of the worst criminal offenders in the Western District of Arkansas. All 15 of those child abuse exploitation offenders are from Washington County. And some of those are some of the worst offenders because they prey on the most vulnerable members of our community. And this is an important federal resource that we can leverage to address this very, very serious criminal conduct that's occurring in our district. 10 of those inmates, when we did this survey on Friday, are charged in federal court with distribution of heroin. Heroin is simply stated one of the most dangerous and deadly substances that is currently known to the DEA and other law enforcement agencies. This group includes defendants who are all local drug dealers from Washington County. They were all involved in the distribution of this dangerous and deadly substance. During the course of their distribution of heroin, 8 overdose deaths occurred in Washington County and Benton County that were directly tied to heroin abuse and heroin distribution. One of those 10 defendants that's charged with heroin distribution is currently facing a charge of distributing heroin to someone and causing that person's death as a result of that distribution of heroin. 39 of those defendants are charged with being major traffickers of methamphetamine, which is also a very deadly and dangerous substance. These defendants are not user amount defendants. They're not even ounce level defendants. These are major drug traffickers who brought large quantities of this dangerous drug into the Western District of Arkansas and distributed it here in our communities. 6 of those 88 people are what we would term career offenders who were found in possession of firearms. This is part of a very important initiative from the Department of Justice called Project Safe Neighborhoods. And under that initiative, we address those defendants with lengthy, violent criminal histories that are found to be in possession of firearms illegally. And 6 of those 88 defendants were such career criminal offenders who were found in possession of firearms. The last thing that I'd like to note before moving on to a couple more points is that these are your own county's law enforcement efforts. We partner with local law enforcement, with state law enforcement, and we could not prosecute these individuals without the assistance, without the help, and in many cases, sometimes these were requested to be prosecuted in federal court by local law enforcement and by local prosecutors. And the reasons are because of what I first stated, that we have federal resources that we can leverage to address this very serious criminal conduct, including our sentencing guidelines, including the potential mandatory minimum sentences, and including the lack of parole eligibility for certain offenders in federal court. Almost all of these cases were, at least in part, investigated and in some cases prosecuted by local law enforcement and local prosecutors. The prosecution of these cases is vital to the accomplishment of the mission of the Western District of Arkansas U.S. Attorney's Office, and that is to make our communities safer. It's important also to maintain this relationship with the Washington County Sheriff's Office and with the Washington County Jail because it's part of building that relationship with local law enforcement that I just referenced. We can't accomplish this huge, very important mission that we have in the Western District of Arkansas without partnering with local and state officers. It's absolutely vital to develop and to build these relationships in order to accomplish that mission. And here's why. Without a local facility to house federal defendants who are accused of these serious criminal offenses that I've already noted, the agents would be required to transport those very serious criminal defendants many hours to another facility. Without such a local facility, the defense attorneys who represent these federal criminal inmates would also have to drive several hours to another facility in order to advise those defendants of their rights, in order to advise them of their decisions, the very serious decisions that they have to make throughout the criminal prosecution process. These factors make it more difficult, more expensive to prosecute these very important cases. In short, having a facility hours away means that our limited number of prosecutors that I've already referenced for the court and our limited number of federal agents would be further taxed by having to spend many more hours on the road, potentially limiting the number of cases that each one of our prosecutors could prosecute and limiting the number of cases that each one of our investigators could investigate and bring to us. Removing this partnership will not help accomplish the mission of making Washington County and the Western District of Arkansas a safer place. It will, in fact, make it more difficult for us to accomplish this very important mission. I'd be happy to answer any questions any members of the court might have for me.
J.P. Madison and J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Just real quick, so I'll be sure my last statements
Yes.
were close to accurate. Given the seriousness of the offenses that you outlined, are they likely to ever get out of jail?
I'd have to address that on a case-by-case
Okay,
basis.
I mean, I'm
but,
wondering if they really are gonna come
Many
home.
of them are facing lengthy sentences in the Bureau of Prisons, so.
Okay, well, there's comfort in that after you describe the offenses, but your point about the driving back and forth by local attorneys and prosecutors is very compelling. Thank you.
J.P. Deacons.
I just want to make this crystal clear for everyone. Just because the inmates are not housed in Washington County Detention Center does not mean we don't have access to the federal justice system. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Folks
Thank
took
you,
a lot
Mr.
of my
Folks.
gusto.
Thank you,
my-
Mr. Folks.
My name is Dwayne Allen. I'm the Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal for Western Arkansas. I've been in law enforcement for 17 years this month, most all of it with the Marshal Service. Overcrowding, jail overcrowding is not new to me. It's not new to the Marshal Service. It's not new to the 34 counties that Clay and I represent. Washington County holds roughly 37% of the federal inmates that I'm responsible for housing. Washington County does have the largest number of inmates in any jail in this district. But I submit to you that is because of the incredible growth of population in Northwest Arkansas. This is our busiest division. I have 5 divisions in the 34 counties, and this is by far the busiest. The inmates that we house, and Clay he spoke to this, but the inmates we house are the worst of the worst. The inmates that we arrest on a fugitive basis are the worst of the worst. The previous number was 88, I think, that I provided Friday. Today we have 92 in Washington County right now. About 12 of those can go out immediately to the Bureau of Prisons. Roughly 15 of those 92 are on writs. The writ process is essentially the federal government taking a state inmate to prosecute them federally, okay? Guess where those 15 writs came from? They came from Washington County, so they would be in your jail regardless, right? As Clay mentioned, he didn't get into great detail about it, but the U.S. Attorney's Office has the ability to work directly with state and locals, law enforcement, to adopt federal cases. There doesn't have to be a federal agent involved in a prosecution at the federal level at all. I submit to you that 20, 25, maybe even 30 of the people we have in Washington County right now, that's the case. Your state and local law enforcement officers work directly with the U.S. Attorney's Office to bring those cases to fruition, okay? I further submit to you that the largest majority of people that we have in Washington County today are from this area. The reason the public may see that people are from North Dakota or other states, fugitives don't always, or federal defendants don't always tell the truth. They're probably reporting where they're originally from, or maybe that's their hometown. But, you know, I submit that the vast majority of the 92 people have local ties to the Northwest Arkansas area. Last year, this number's already been thrown out there, but last year was about $1.7 million the Marshal Service paid to Washington County. That's for housing only. We also pay Washington County to transport for us. You know, that maybe brings it to 1.75. The transport is not near as much as the housing. Washington County is the highest paid detention facility that I have in the district. The contract is open now. I think it's 3 years before it can be renegotiated. I can certainly renegotiate with the county to raise that rate. It would be a tremendous hardship for the Marshal Service, for me, to relocate 92 people, even within 30 days. If I relocated them, they will be several hours from this community, okay? Sebastian County, they're pretty capped out with federal inmates. You know, they have overcrowding issue. Benton County can only hold so many inmates. And beyond those two, you know, you really have to travel to southern Arkansas to find another one of my facilities that could hold these inmates. So you're talking about putting inmates in a different state, perhaps Missouri or Oklahoma, and U.S. Probation, U.S. Attorney's Office, federal public defenders, CJA public defenders that represent federal inmates. All of those people are going to have to drive to interview these people. Family members from the community are going to have to drive to visit their relatives that are incarcerated. Those are some of the hardships that would take place if you asked me to relocate 92 people today. I think that's about it. I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Allen. J.P. Deacons and then J.P. Yanez.
So if the federal inmates weren't in the Washington County Detention Center, would you stop your partnerships from a law enforcement perspective with the local authorities?
No.
Thank you.
J.P. Yanez.
Thank you for the information. So you described all the inmates that are there and why they're there. So we have a dangerous overcrowding situation with dangerous inmates. I mean, my mind is blown, but my question for you is, what can the federal government do to help us with the situation?
Well, we can keep paying the bills. We always pay our bills. There's a lot of resources the federal government has. The Marshal Service, unfortunately, does not own or operate any detention facilities in the country, okay? The practice that we have going on with Washington County, Benton County, Sebastian County is the typical practice throughout the country. The Marshal Service contracts with local jails to house our inmates. If they're not in a local jail, they're serving time at the Bureau of Prisons. To answer your question specifically, and I don't want to get into great detail, I haven't even discussed this with the sheriff, but the Marshal Service from time to time can enter into what's called a cap agreement with a detention facility, which allows the Marshal Service to subsidize some of the cost of building a new pod or a new facility. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I have tried for the past 17 years to get a cap agreement in southern Arkansas, and it simply doesn't happen, okay? Because western Arkansas and our small community, our 34 counties, is not on the radar in Washington, D.C. in terms of sinking millions of dollars into another facility. Large districts like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, those are the districts that are going to be able to obtain that cap money. But I submit to you that I will try. I will try to do that. I'm open to limiting the number of federal inmates we have in Washington County. If the sheriff wants me to cut it down to 50 or 60 or 15, I'll do that. We have a great working relationship with Sheriff Helder and all of our state and locals and even federal law enforcement agencies in Northwest Arkansas and beyond. If the resolution passed and Tim called me tomorrow and said, I need you to get rid of 92 inmates, it's just business. Tim is going to remain my friend, and we're going to still do business up here, and I'm sure the U.S. Attorney's Office is as well. Hope that answered your question.
It did. Can I?
Go ahead.
Okay. I just, with what was described as a family member, I would be afraid of my family member being in that jail now for safety reasons, overcrowdedness, and the inmates that we have. So thank you for your willingness to try to support something,
Sure.
for this crisis.
J.P. Pond, then J.P. Madison, and then J.P. Jenkins.
We talk about, comments have been made about some of the folks that are being held there on your behalf or from out of town, out of state, and that sort of thing. I don't really believe, but I'll ask you, you're not bringing people in from out of state that you arrested for us to hold here, and then they wind up having to go somewhere else back where they were arrested to go to court or anything like that.
If I understand your question, you're asking me, do we bring people from other jurisdictions or other states here to hold them, for them to not have court here but have it in another jurisdiction? No,
Yes.
we do not do that.
And when I hear local, and I'm assuming, and I don't think I'm mistaken, they were arrested here. And so they're probably gonna go to court here. And so maybe they're from South Dakota or someplace else. Their loved ones would have to come here to see them, but the witnesses, victims of crime, they're gonna be held here, and they're gonna go to trial here where the victims and the witnesses would be present, and they don't have to travel.
That's an accurate statement.
Okay, because I think some people may be mistaken that you're just taking advantage of our jail, but I don't believe you are, and I appreciate the cooperation that Washington County and the surrounding cities have always had with you. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
J.P. Madison, then Jenkins, and then J.P. Harbison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I guess I had some delusion that some of the occupants might be legislators that took kickbacks, but that's apparently not the case, or they're held elsewhere. Do you pay the same rate pre-trial as you do after conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk to the state of Arkansas?
I'm not sure the governor would listen. To me.
You have a point there. Do some of these people bond out that are pre-trial?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be the legislators, perhaps, or people in that category that are not a risk, violence-wise.
Clay may be better able to answer that question. We do have a large percentage of federal defendants that are indicted or charged at the federal level in this district that bond out, yes. I don't know that number off the top of my head. I could get it for you.
Do they have to stay here so they can meet with their attorney, or that's up to them if they bond out?
I'll let Clay speak to that.
I don't know much about bonding out.
It depends on where their residence is, but if they are residents of the Western District of Arkansas, their travel is usually restricted to the Western District of Arkansas if a judge determines that pretrial release is appropriate. And our judges make all those determinations. There's a federal statute that outlines the guidelines for determining whether a person's a risk of flight or a risk of danger to the community. And our judges review those factors on every case and make a determination as to whether the person should be detained and awaiting trial or whether they can be released on a bond.
Okay. And your rate's the same pretrial?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Since this matters to some of us that collect money, do you pay promptly? Do you pay monthly, or do you pay once a year, or when do you pay?
There's a lot of things the federal government does not do right, but paying our bills is one of the things we do right, so.
And you do it timely.
I paid an invoice to Sheriff Helder or the Washington County Detention Center today. And
Good
we
job.
always, we have the Prompt Payment Act, which requires us to pay within 31 days, and I assure you, we pay our bills.
Thank you.
J.B. Jenkins.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this particular population of inmates, you had mentioned earlier, if you were asked to move them immediately, you mentioned places like Sebastian County and Benton County. Are there certain specifications for the type of jail that you take these inmates to? Or are there other populations across the state that would be willing to take on inmates such as this?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Well, you had said you were talking about how Sebastian County and Benton County had so much room for the federal inmates, but aren't there other jails across the state that would be willing to take in these inmates aside from? I mean, are there specifications for the type of facility that they go to?
There are specifications. The Marshal Service is required annually to inspect the detention centers that we house our inmates in. So, you know, every year we inspect Benton County, Washington County, Sebastian County, and so on. The fact of the matter is, some jails are much more secure. Some jails, like Washington County, do a great job with the medical aspect of our inmates. They have a nurse inside the facility. They have a medical doctor that comes once or twice a week. Some jails in Arkansas don't do that, and we can't house prisoners at those facilities. It's just a mandate. Tuberculosis testing is required. Washington County is able to do that in-house. I don't like housing federal inmates in a detention center where they're removed from a secure environment and taken out into the public, say for example to a doctor's office for something that should be able to be handled inside the secure facility. So to answer your question, there are other facilities, but I'm currently using them.
Right.
There are no other detention centers in the 34 counties I represent that can house inmates. There's not even any in the remaining counties for the state, save one, and we don't have a contract with them right now.
I understand all that. My concern is also when it comes to medical staff and medical staffing, with a overpopulation, with what we're dealing with right now, I'm sure that's a strain on that medical staff and getting people in a timely manner who need the medical attention. So, I mean, is there anything that the Fed can do to help us in that respect?
Well, let me just say this. Washington County does a tremendous job in terms of caring for our federal inmates medically. Mm-hmm. And I'm certain they do the same quality job caring for state and local inmates.
Sure.
I have had no issues medically that I've needed to address with the sheriff. You know, I don't remember the last time we had to address a medical issue with the sheriff. I'm not sure that the Marshal Service could directly or favorably impact in a positive way the medical aspect, but we do pay for it. Washington County does not have to pay for pharmaceuticals, for hospital bills, medical doctors, dentists. All of those costs are reimbursed by the Marshal Service. So the county's not out any money in terms of medical care, if that helps.
Thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
First, I want to say that I hear everybody, I understand that we have the worst of the worst of the federal prisoners, but we are at a point that we need to make some decisions. And right now, things are kind of on hold to see what our criminal justice study's going to do. We've seen some results already this last week on failure to appears, the tremendous bond issue that's set because they don't show up. We're working on that. But as been said many times, this is the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, of maybe we could move these prisoners out, the state and the federal, and at least would reduce the number of people on the floor and actually make it safer for everybody, including the people that work there and including our inmates. My concern is, at some point, we're going to have a death in the jail because of this overcrowding situation. Whether it is a law enforcement agent or an inmate. And this is a resolution. I just want to send a message that we are concerned that we've got to move forward with some of these things to reduce the overpopulation in our jail. Thank you.
It was J.P. Duncan and then J.P. Yanez.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. I had a question. You mentioned federal regulations, and it sounds like there's different standards at the federal level versus like state versus local. I was curious, is there any regulation that would prevent inmates from sleeping on the floor at the federal level?
No.
Okay, just curious. And then the second question is probably more for the sheriff. I know that when I toured the jail months back that there were certain like 4-cell rooms that would have just one inmate because of that inmate is more prone to violence or was a threat to other individuals. I'm just curious, of those that are a higher threat, it sounds like a lot of the federal inmates are probably a higher threat. Is there an overlap there? How many of these guys are sleeping in they're taking up a 4-bed room by themselves, are federal inmates?
I don't have the answer for you how many, but there are some because of segregation issues and the crime, but I don't have the numbers tonight. Sorry.
Okay. That just would be a thought to me, is if you could take some of these more higher risk guys and move them to places that have open space, and then you open up 4 beds, all of a sudden you just freed up 4 beds and transferred 1 inmate. That's $62 that we just freed up 4 beds for. So just a comment more than anything.
J.P. Yanez.
Quick question. Are your contracts only local detention centers or are they state detention centers too?
All the contracts that I have in my district are local county jails. That doesn't prevent us, however, from contracting with state facilities. We just don't have any state facilities in my district.
Can we look into that? Well, out of the district.
Sure, I can look into it, but I'll tell you right now, all the state facilities are ADC facilities that hold state prisoners. It would be virtually impossible to contract with them to hold federal inmates pre-trial. We writ a lot of people out of ADC to face federal charges. Ultimately, when the case is adjudicated at the federal level, they go back to ADC. So I think it'd be virtually impossible to contract with an ADC facility to hold pretrial federal defendants.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
J.B. Deacons. You good? Thank you, guys. Any other public comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Derek Coughlin. I'm a resident of Fayetteville. I just want to say, like, as a comment, that this is just quite a conundrum. Like, it seems like it's it's just like a big circle of repeated issues all over the board. But it seems like a lot of the focus is on fiscal implications. And I think that a major reminder is that for a lot of the citizens of Fayetteville, and just a lot of people that aren't in this room, that, like, these are people involved, and we have an overcrowding issue, and, like, this is just a crisis, so I really feel like that's really important to do something, rather than, I don't know, just only focus about money. I mean, I know that you guys need money to make this society run, but I just want to make the comment that, like, these crimes were described as being so terrible, and I think it's emblematic of a culture that we're living amongst, and I think a lot of that comes from incarceration and its history in this country, and I think that if you think that incarceration has been effective to rehab our society, I think that you are being really, really ignorant of history, especially for, like, Black and poor communities. I think that you're being really facetious with yourself, and so I think that it's not about letting people loose. It's just, expansion is not going to help this issue. Like, it's actually contributing to a culture that is, in my opinion, and a lot of people that are, on another side, like, that's causing a lot of these issues for crime for people. Of course, like, there's going to be inherent evil in the world, but a lot of our societal issues root from the stain that incarceration has been in our history. So I just ask you to remember that, like, when you're making these decisions, it's not about letting people loose. It's just, we need to do something about this issue that Fayetteville and NWA's issue is facing. Like, it's an urgent issue. It's a crisis, as you guys have repeated. So I don't know. We can keep talking about money, but I think you guys need to do something about that, like, because you guys got power to do it. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you.
Hi, excuse me. It's been a long meeting, getting a dry throat. Sarah Moore from Fayetteville. I sent this to you guys as the court was starting, so you probably haven't seen it. We haven't started this conversation just, a few moments ago or a few weeks ago. This has been brewing for years, and in January of 2019, I stumbled into this conversation and have done a lot of educating myself and going around with key decision makers and sitting and talking. And so I don't want anybody to forget that we really have been talking about this issue, and there's been lots of discussion about low-hanging fruit, like people have talked about the possibility of things that are out there. And it's not just isolated folks that have different ideas. There's widespread belief on many of these things, like the resolutions today on federal and the state to not be held in our current facility. The beliefs are that we should focus maybe on our local population instead, and we see that in other jurisdictions across the state and in other states across the nation. When you look at the U.S. Department of Justice, they have the National Institute of Corrections, and they actually have a jail capacity planning guide, and I sent it to all of you. Basically, some of the steps that we started to take, they really say you should do that. You need to look at jail operations. You need to bring all the key decision makers to the table. But you also have to start talking about policy. And that's kind of what we started to do. We're in the middle of our assessment. It's going to come back at the end of June, the first week of July, somewhere in there. But some of the things that they're going to recommend to us are going to be things like you need to decide what your policy is going to be going forward on what kind of folks you're going to detain. And so today we can say we know there are feds in our facility today that are taking up a large number of our bed days, and we have the ability to make that decision to say we think that we need to get 100 people that we said have been in crisis for at least a year that I've been hearing since January 2019. We're still talking. We know that these folks are present, sleeping on the floor, and we know between state and federal, if we were able to no longer house those individuals, we would get those folks off the floor. So I think that's probably why this is being brought forward, and I guess I'm surprised to hear that it seems surprising to talk about that, because I do know that we have spoken on what those populations look like, and they're reported on every single month in the jail committee. We speak about the growing number of bed days, And so I think that definitely has to be something that's a part of the discussion, and it's very relevant. We do have to look at the fiscal implications, and that's important as well, but we don't know all of the true hidden cost associated with continuing, as we've seen the jail standards has come and done our audits, saying that our overcrowding is causing our detention center to deteriorate at a faster rate, that we're not able to do proper maintenance. And we do know that we do have to take care of these individuals in a different manner, so the things like Caris Healthcare has to do that are special for the federal and the state take away from being able to take care of the rest of the population. And when we do that agreement with Caris, our thought is that we're taking care of our county inmates whenever we're doing our medical agreement. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. But I feel like this has been in the conversation, and I hope that you guys will support to consider that we go ahead and say, Sheriff, if you decide this is something we need to move forward and do, that we support you and vote yes on these.
Thank you, Sarah. Public comments.
Good evening, Kenny Arredondo Loyola, Justice of the Peace candidate for District 4 in Springdale. Firstly, I'd like to address Lisa. One of the comments that you shared tonight was about the sheriff. I really appreciate the information that y'all are sharing, that we cannot micromanage a sheriff or his department. But to use it as rhetoric against this proposal is against the democracy that this country is founded upon. And you further to share that the study that that was done with the jail was like a 50-50 like shot, because chances are the judge may not even really care or listen to that study, but that fails to see that though the people in power don't care, which would say a lot about that, we need to change that. It informs the public. And this proposal, like Deacon Sankey said, that was a civilian-led effort, most likely used that study to inform itself to be able to do this. So that is very important in how we perceive and operate in these systems, not just in these platforms, but on the ground. And I had a lot to think. Yeah, and it's just really important that we also understand the culture, like it's already been said, of the jail systems and how they operate. We need to understand that they are not how we should be approaching rehabilitation towards the inmates. Ultimately, a lot of the rhetoric that was said tonight against this proposal was that it will require more distance for family members and friends to go visit the inmates. But in all reality, like, a lot of those inmates don't have visitations even when they are like local here with their community, and that's likely, like, isolation is a lot of the root of why people are driven to do whatever crimes they commit. And I really appreciate that sentiment that a lot of people have expressed tonight, that we need to like be aware and like care for that. But I would like to instead challenge us to really channel that same care, but to the root of the problem, where in all reality, like, if we're gonna be focusing on the healing of the inmates in there, a lot of the healing that they do is not from the visitations that they receive, but it's within the system itself, and their own self-reflection and self-work that they do by themselves.
10 seconds, Mr. Loyal.
But within the community as well, in the jail. And furthermore, like, if we neglect this proposal and continue to work towards jail expansion here, that's just gonna continue to divert our resources away from the fundamental resources we need to be creating in the community itself, in the schools, and like we need to be helping poor people.
Thank you, Mr. Loyola. You had 10 seconds.
Point of order. I'd like to suspend the rules to allow 2 more minutes.
Thank you.
For this
You got a
gentleman to
motion
speak.
to suspend the rules?
Second.
And a second. All in favor? All right, Ms. Lawler, 2 minutes.
Thank you. And yes, we need to think that way. We need to operate that way. We really need to address and understand the root of why people do these crimes. And a lot of the rhetoric that the sheriff shared also with the extremist, like, crimes that were committed, child pornography, all that stuff, like, we also need to contextualize the numbers. And like, I'm sorry that I'm not prepared with the numbers tonight, but like, how many people are incarcerated off of like traffic stops, off of like minor drug possession, and how really are we understanding like drug offenses as like repercussions of a system that has ultimately been built that is not for us and that has failed us. Furthermore, a lot of the rhetoric is that against this proposal is to keep the community safe, but I question which communities are we keeping safe. Historically, the police have been to serve the elite, not poor people, not people of color. Yeah, so I would really like you all to reflect on a lot of what has been said. Yeah, like Eva had said, you know, this is like a rush process. Like, we can't, like, you know, like, we can't accept this proposal because of that, but a lot of people have said that this has been an ongoing discussion for months, for years. So I just would like to bring that to the table for accountability as well. And that kind of makes me question, like, what exactly are you doing on towards this issue? What is the research really? And yeah, I would really like to see this proposal pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawler.
There's only 7 seconds left.
We need to suspend the rules, and if you're going to go ahead.
I move to suspend the rules and allow
All right.
Mr. Bailey to speak for
We got a motion to
3
suspend the
minutes.
rules, 3 minutes, a second by Lisa J.P. Ecke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You
I
have
thought-
3
I thought I
minutes.
could speak.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. My name's Rex Bailey, Springdale. This is not a new deal, Mr. Dinkins. We've been going through, I was elected in 2008, and it was a problem in 15. It is a money deal. I know. How are you going to make up that? Your budget's always close. Our budget's always, very, very tight. It was 2008 to 2015. It's just the way it is. Your enemy is not the federal government. Your enemy is not the sheriff. It's the state of Arkansas. Governor Beebe did the same thing as Governor Hudson. We fought this for years. But it is going to come down where you're going to come up with the money. The federal prisoners are not the only one that commit violence. They're not. I mean, that's what I'm getting here, some of the people talking. They're not very good people in jail. It's just the way it is. But what you need to do, you need to trust the professionals. And that's Sheriff Helder. I've heard some questions, some of really Sheriff Helder's integrity. You got one of the best sheriffs in the state of Arkansas, probably this reason. I've served with him. Everything he ever told me was true that I checked. He'll work with you, okay? Work with him. But it's going to come down to a finance deal. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Got a minute and a half.
No, I'm sorry, they got like 30 minutes.
I'm just saying that's what your time is.
Okay, my name is Beth Koger. I'm from Fayetteville. So I guess it comes down to this. We can keep the agreement and keep the federal dollars, because that seems to be very important to everybody, those federal dollars. But what are you saying when you do that? Are you saying those federal dollars are more important than the safety of the people who work at the detention center and the people who we have locked up in the detention center? Because that's what it sounds like. The other thing, someone mentioned about families and connections. Sometimes families and those connections are what got people in jail in the first place. The other thing I'd like to say is, I don't know that we need a larger jail, and I've never said that. I said I think that we do not need a larger jail, but I have facts, data, and evidence to back that up. So when an elected official sits here and says he knows that we do not need a larger jail, then I'm sorry. I've shared all my information with the court. I want you to share that information with me. And as far as I never said that I want to release all the criminals. I got a call Saturday from my JP because he said something, that I had said something that he didn't say. So I just want to get that straight. I'd never said that, and that's not what I'm talking about. But I want us to think long and hard about this because it is a dangerous situation at the jail. And if we put the dollars above the safety of the inmates and the staff, then that's not good.
Thank you, JP, Ms. Coger.
That was it, Tom.
All right. So we have a resolution, JP Deacons, a second by, who was the second? JP Jenkins. Ms. Patty?
Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. No. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
No.
Willie Lemming.
No way.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
No.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
No.
Derek Thomas.
That one passes. All right, resolution number 20.1, JP Deacons.
County Attorney Lester, will you read this resolution? If it pleases the court.
One second. Okay, go ahead.
If it pleases the group, I will let County Attorney Lester use his discretion. Some of the recitals at the first are the same as the other, so, yeah.
Title only?
Title only, or do you want me to read through?
Can you read the last two recitals? And is it proper to do that?
I think the motion that I made was to
To
suspend the rules on ordinances only.
Okay.
I'll make a new motion that we suspend the rules and read this one in brevity according to the wishes of the county attorney.
I know the evening drags on, but if it's appropriate to read the whole thing.
Well, I just made a motion.
She's made a motion
Will it
to,
work?
all right, we got a motion to suspend the rules and read the resolution in its brevity, and second by JP Deacons. Go ahead, Counselor. Oh, all in favor? Those opposed? All right. Passes.
Be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution to address the issue of housing state inmates in the Washington County Detention Center. Whereas due to insufficient bed space for state prisoners, the county jails of Arkansas, including Washington County Detention Center, are used to house state prisoners until space becomes available in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. The state of Arkansas pays a daily rate, which is a small portion of the actual cost of housing inmates when they have been convicted by the courts of Washington County, Arkansas. That rate is currently $30 per day, less than half of the amount stated current cost of $62 per day. And whereas there are county jails in Arkansas that are not at capacity, and they are often willing to accept prisoners from other counties in order to receive the $30 per day paid by the state of Arkansas for housing these inmates. And whereas solving the jail overcrowding and the causes of overcrowding is a journey that will require long-term and ongoing commitment from this and future quorum courts, and there are steps that can be taken immediately to ease the overcrowding in the Washington County Detention Center. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, this resolution is made for the purpose of ensuring a safe and healthy environment at the Washington County Detention Center for law enforcement protection services in the custody of persons accused or convicted of crimes, and to comply with Arkansas Code annotated 1414-802A2.
Okay, discussion. Oh, JP Deacons.
Thank you, County Judge. Thank you, County Attorney Lester, for reading that out loud. So I think we're all well aware of the position the state has put us in and continues to put us in on an ongoing basis. The $30 a day is woefully low. It doesn't cover hardly any of our costs. I've called that a consolation prize. I mean, we're essentially just accepting anything that we can get at this point. If we can reduce our crowding, increase safety, and help fiscally, I think it's only a prudent thing to do that we explore this option and look at it. I want to clear up a couple points. These are inmates sentenced or convicted, sentenced, and awaiting transfer to ADC. They will eventually be transferred regardless. Some have argued that moving them out of Washington County will separate from their family and friends, You know, I've spoken to many community members, people who are familiar with jails. You know, in today's world, a lot of inmate communication is email and video conferencing. So, let's weigh that while we're thinking about some other things. Additionally, sometimes, like JP Yanez said, removing people from their networks is actually a healthy thing to do while they're trying to recover. So I want us to weigh that too when we're worried about the geographical changes that we'll be making here. You know, we've had communications with an ADC board member. You know, they have said that if we reach out as a county, they will do their best to coordinate with us to open up ADC bed space. If they can't do that, they'll help us coordinate with other Arkansas counties to connect us with open beds. You know, the message to us was, you just have to call. In addition, we were told, I know this conflicts with the Sheriff Helder email that we received this afternoon, that the ADC will try to provide transportation to these different counties. So my message is to the Quorum Court, this process exists. This process works for other jurisdictions. And the reality of why we've never taken advantage of this process seems to simply be because as a county we've never asked. It's never been explored before. I also want to reiterate, because there were a lot of questions from the public about this, the 309 trustees are a completely different matter. They are not intended to be, will not be affected by this resolution. The bottom line is we owe this effort to explore this possibility to the people of Washington County. I'm asking to vote in support of the sheriff and his staff, give them all of our support to thoroughly vet this out, to relocate these inmates to other jurisdictions. I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
Got a motion to pass resolution and a second by J.P. Duncan. Discussion. J.P. Madison, J.P. Hires, J.P. Madison, and J.P. Pine.
So there's no question that the state pays us a paltry sum for what they ask of us. And that's been a constant source of frustration to me the entire time I've been on the court. As former JP Bailey shared, it's just been a constant issue. I think there was a point at which I went into Mr. Lester's office and asked if we could sue the state for unjust enrichment, trying to come up with some method to force the state to pay their costs, because I really feel like they've passed this on. But I want to speak directly to the issue that JP Deacons raised that I mentioned earlier. I am very confused about what additional costs this could bring to Washington County, because the sheriff mentioned at committee that we would have to pay for transportation, and then we have somebody that's on the ADC board telling us that they'll pay for transportation costs. And then I'm also curious, I know we have representatives from our prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. If these are all post-conviction, are there going to be any travel expenses borne by either of your offices? You know, because if we find room over in West Memphis where Miss Witter has to go to see her daughter, I don't know if all of Washington County going over to West Memphis all the time makes much sense. So do we know, can somebody tell us if there are costs envisioned by this? When they're convicted, maybe you're done with them.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Once they're convicted.
Matt Durrett.
I'm sorry, Matt Durrett with the prosecutor's office. Once they're convicted and once they're sentenced to ADC and they're on the waiting list, then yeah.
They're no longer your
we're done
concern.
with them.
Okay.
So we don't have any cost. The public defenders don't have any cost.
Public defenders don't either? Okay. Not even for like an appeal or? No?
Well,
Okay. I'm trying to figure out if this is going to ultimately cost us money.
Greg Parrish with the Public Defender Commission. Once there's a conviction, if we represent them, the state pays for the appeal.
Okay.
It's not costing the county anything.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, Sheriff, I know you emailed us today, and I saw a lot of shaking heads back in the back of the room when somebody said that the state would pay, but I mean, right now they don't pay. I mean, don't we take them does the state pick them up if they go to a prison?
I've been in law enforcement 40-plus years. The state has never transported one person. And so I called Buddy, who Ms. Koger had the conversation with, and I said, Buddy, what are you talking? He said, I never said that. And in quotations, it said they'll send their vans to come get them. I can only tell you, it's either a big misunderstanding or just, I don't know. But I'm just telling you, it's in law that the state reimburses us at the rate of $30. We're responsible for the transportation of state prisoners. End of story. That's it.
Thank you.
It was J.P. Hires.
Thank you, Judge. I just want to express that since the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee meeting, I really struggled with this. I've gone back and forth. I've weighed this idea, that idea. But today, I spoke to several constituents, and after clearing up some misconceptions that I personally had about this particular resolution, particularly about the 309s, I was very concerned that that was part of the state population and what that would do for what kind of problem that would cause for our detention center. And after clearing those up and speaking with constituents, I did decide to co-sponsor both of these. I feel much more strongly about this one, about the state prisoners. I feel like this is one where we're really losing a lot of money. We're taking up a lot of bed space for people that have been convicted. I feel like this is an easy solution to what has been described to me as a crisis from the moment I stepped onto this Quorum Court. And so I am surprised at all of the contentiousness that's come with this, but I also have to say I've really enjoyed the reinvigoration of this conversation that had grown stagnant, that at least we are, if these resolutions have done nothing, at least these resolutions, because they're a suggestion, they're a direction that we would like our county to go in. And if these resolutions have done nothing, they've at least brought us back into this conversation and brought forward some great ideas and some great partners that are willing to help us figure this out. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
J.B. Madison, and then it was J.P. Pond.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I just wanted to ask the county attorney. This one applies only to post-convicted, the convicted Arkansas prisoners? Or is it both?
Now, this one says that it's specifically requesting the sheriff take all steps necessary to transfer as soon as practical state prisoners awaiting bed space in the Arkansas Department of Corrections.
So that would be convicted people then. Thank you.
J.P. Pond.
Maybe one or two individuals during public comment time said something about it. Just seems like this is way too much all about the money. To be honest with any of them, it's all about the money, but it's not way too much. We're gonna take whatever kind of money it takes to make sure that people incarcerated are well taken care of, their health and all these other issues. It costs more, most likely, to take care of one of these individuals than it would for them to be home taking care of themselves. Yes, it's a lot about the money. And we can't cut corners or cut costs on people that are residing with us unwillingly. This has been a very frustrating issue for a lot of years. The people at the state level need to hear us, hear our concerns, and understand what kind of situation we're in. This is it's been a problem for a very long time, but yes, I'll say it again, it's all about the money. We've got to have that money to take care of these folks as long as they're here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond. Any other discussion? Public comments? Ms. Moore, Ms. Koger? Your time ended, and we didn't extend time, so do you want to finish or whatever? Public comments.
Beth Koger, Fayetteville. I'm sorry, I had to step out of the room, so I had to make a phone call to Mr. Chaddick, but he didn't answer. I left a message, and so I don't know everything that was said, but I talked to Mr. Chaddock, and I know what he told me. He told someone else the very same thing, so it's not just that he told me that. So I did not misunderstand, and I did not misinform, so I don't know what's going on with that. As far as the state goes, I'm sure that while I was out, you've been talking about the cost and how much money we lose on the state. And when we went to tour the Garland County Jail, they have a relationship with the Arkansas Department of Corrections, and they have a member of the staff who helps coordinate with the ADC to find jails, rural jails mostly. There are jails who actually want the state inmates, because to them, that $30 is a lot of money. They have a lot less lower overhead than we do. I come from a small county. I came here from Yale County, Danville. We had a small jail, and the sheriff there was always, they were always trying to fill that jail. And what happened is they built the jail, they built a new jail, and then they really couldn't fill it with people from Danville. We didn't have that many criminals, evidently. So I do know that it can be done. And I don't know why a van hasn't been to Washington County since 1998, but maybe have we asked them to come and bring a van? That would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
And thank you, Judge Webb.
Any other public comments?
I just wanted to mention that the reminder.
You give us your name and
Oh, my name
city
is
again.
Derek Coughlin, and I'm a resident of Fayetteville. I just thought it was interesting that the reminder to the fiscal importance was reminded at the same time I was writing what I was thinking. Okay, I'm gonna take a second because there's a lot of weight on these words. I guess I'm just gonna call this like a spiritual reckoning, and I really just want you to put yourself attention to what we're talking about on a cultural level, not a fiscal level. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's happening in the world right now, but I don't think you guys know what it's like to be poor worldwide right now. Like, when I'm saying that they don't care about your organization of what this costs our county, like a lot of poor people in this county, a lot of poor people worldwide don't care. Like right now we are feeling hunger, we are feeling survival. There's a lot of disaster crises such as jail overcrowding, such as just a lot of crises in terms of being impoverished around the world. And I guess I just wanted to put in the rhetoric that, at least from, I'm part of that community. Seems like a lot of people are feeling pressure to rise up and dismantle systems and eat the rich, so to say. And it's because we as a civilization could reallocate how we govern ourselves, how we distribute our resources, and how power is held over each other. We could make, you guys could be focusing on those kind of changes for our community rather than talking about all this money for the jail. And I really feel like you'd be a lot more effective in reaching the citizens of this place, and really making change for people to, stop overcrowding our jails. And I just want to remind these things because on a cultural level, you can pay the cost to figure this out and be the change that we need socially to heal and unify into a new kind of existence that doesn't involve mass incarceration. And letting this stalemate will 100% result in an uprising of the poor. I'm telling y'all, you guys are U.S. government officials, it's coming. I'm just telling you straight up. Washington County, this situation, I have a lot of friends that are incarcerated, and a lot of people do not feel how you feel towards law enforcement. So when I'm telling you, you guys are talking about maybe somebody's gonna get hurt, those people are being hurt inside the jail right now. They don't really care about if law enforcement officers are gonna get hurt. I'm just telling you this. You can just be mad about what I'm telling you. You could also just take this as an observation of somebody from a different community trying to convey to you what I'm observing you guys make decisions about these policies. The last thing I wanna say is that when class warfare hits the fan, Washington County could be a front line for that, high key. There's a lot of people in there that are facing a lot of problems from the law enforcement in this region, and that's just a common thing. I will finish it with this statement. Incarceration is an aggressive continuance of the occupation on this stolen land by this government. I'm Native American, and what you guys are representing, what you guys are talking about right now, organizing, has never cared about the cost of destruction of people, of this environment. And I really want to remind you, this is not about money. This is about people. These are people in a jail. I'd really like you guys to, if you guys are talking about what we can do to help this, go talk to people in the jail. Just go talk and meet people in the jail. Meet people from that sector of life. But But yeah, I just want to enlighten you fully how the culture feels about U.S. imperial incarceration. And I'm going to quote one of the major musical artists right now. His name's Jeffrey Young Thug. Fuck a Fed and his daughter, man. Fuck him. Like, that's how we feel,
Thank
y'all.
you, sir. Thank you.
Have a good night, y'all.
Thank you.
God bless America.
Public comments. Ms. Patty. Ms. Patty.
Judith Yanez. Patrick Deacons. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
No.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Derek Thomas. It passed.
Is that one, did that pass?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 20, what is that? 21? J.P. Harbison. J.P. Harbison. 21 or 22? 21, J.P. Harbison.
Mike.
Get your microphone.
Okay,
Hold on, point of order.
J.P. Hires.
I move to strike this from the agenda. This did not pass through committee. It does not need to be on this agenda.
No, that's an improper motion to strike. I mean, you can move to suspend to remove it from the agenda. Based on what? That question has come up. You have an ordinance. One, it only addresses ordinances and doesn't address resolutions. But in January of 2019, this Quorum Court passed an ordinance that states that all general ordinances not presented to the county attorney by a member of the Quorum Court introducing that ordinance in a rough draft form at least 5 working days prior to the date of the meeting at which the member of the Quorum Court wishes to introduce the ordinance shall be referred to a standing committee. So that is, we initially started out with an ordinance that basically said everything has to go to a committee, and this court decided they didn't want to adopt that. They wanted there to be ways for ordinances to come to the Quorum Court without going to committee, or ordinances that didn't fail. So your ordinance says, as long as the county attorney has it at least 5 days prior to the meeting, it can be put on the agenda. As that relates to an ordinance, just to say you don't really have any regulations on a resolution.
Can you tell me who the sponsor of this is?
J.P. Harbison.
I'm sponsor of it because it came out of finance. And I'm going to ask the attorney to go on and read the resolution by title only.
A resolution authorizing the offering of capital improvement revenue bonds to finance an addition to the juvenile court facility and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto.
All right, I think we have a presentation to be done tonight. Some of you asked where the stream of revenue and also the plans for the court room. And so Mr. Carl Gales will do that presentation. And Mr. Dwight? Okay.
Our judge and members of the court, our presentation tonight will consist of the drawings for the building as arrived from a committee that has worked over a year. And then we have Kevin Fault with Stevens Financial Group here to explain the financing and the actual budget cost. So I'll have Mr. Fault come now, and this drawings that you see were made from a committee consisting of Judge Zimmerman, Matt Durrett, our public defender, our JDC director, myself and the judge have sat in these committee meetings, so it's been a laborious time that we have spent trying to get to this stage.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. As Carl said, my name is Kevin Fott with Stevens, Inc. Several weeks ago, Judge Wood asked for proposals, and Mr. Lester for financial services, bond underwriting services to finance these judicial expansions. So we did that. Is this on?
It's on. There you go.
I may have, is that better? I probably wasn't just talking into it. So several weeks ago, we were asked to submit a proposal to serve as underwriter for the bonds to finance the new courtroom space. So we did that several weeks ago. We met with staff. I think Judge Wood was actually out of town and presented our ideas of how to finance this facility. So what's in front of you tonight is a resolution that would allow our firm and the Friday Eldridge and Clark Law Firm to begin to take the steps to move the financing to fruition. As I understand, there were some questions, and my apologies, I was at another meeting, or I would have been here 2 nights ago, and maybe some of those questions could have been answered then, but this resolution won't obligate the county to move forward. It's really fairly standard language that the attorney typically drafts, or at least this attorney, Shep Russell, who's been in front of you before. At the end of the day, if the court decides to move forward with the financing after the bond sale, we will be back to you. The court will have to approve the final rates and terms of the bond issue. So even though there is some obligation, and our firm and the law firm would like to have some indication, hence the reason for the resolution, that the court would like to move forward rather than us just working and then someone decide, no, we're not going to finance this. So, however, all that being said, it won't obligate you until such time as the bonds are sold and you approve the ordinance.
Do we have a breakdown of roughly the financing? How much and the interest, et cetera, rough?
Yes, sir. I mean, and bonds change daily, so please understand. But our analysis looked at, and it's been amended somewhat today based on some of our conversations. But we were looking at a 25-year bond issue. It looks like, based on the new cost estimates that we were shown, $4.6 million or so. Construction funds, which would equate to about a $275,000 annual payment, assuming our interest rates are in the 2.75 range, which is kind of where we've been lately. Again, that depends on what time date we're in the bond market, but does that help?
Yes, I think I can't remember, a couple of days, whenever the meeting was, it was at 5 million, 5.5.
Yes, sir, and we put, there is a maximum amount in the resolution in front of you. At that time, we were talking about a $5 million project cost, and so that was just to give us some room. If it makes the court uncomfortable, then, we can drop that amount, but that was just a not to exceed number, so.
And paying off
that was assuming that the county paid off the existing bonds, which is about a $900,000 balance, as I understand it.
Got it. JP Duncan.
So the way I hear it, then we don't have any financial obligation. This is just for you to continue to explore the options.
Well, correct. I mean, this is for us to get started. Obviously, bond documents have to be drafted. The attorneys, again, like to have some assurance that, yes, the county has some intention of moving forward, hence the resolution. We wouldn't like to work for 2 months and then the court say, no, we're not interested in proceeding. So that's really what this is. So it is for you to give some intention that, yes, you want to move forward.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So just for the court's education on this. One is if you do pass this resolution, it is saying, hey, we do agree, we think we need to move forward with this project. We won't pass another ordinance until the bonds are actually sold, at which time you would have to pass the ordinance. I've posed the question, what happens if the Quorum Court doesn't pass the ordinance? Don't know that it's ever happened before, but the bonds, the sale would be null and void, and the county will probably have a very hard time ever issuing bonds again. So this resolution is an intent to go ahead and move forward with this project. These are dedicated revenue stream bonds, so these are not bonds that will sell and ask the taxpayers to pay any additional taxes, and it's not anything that comes out of the general fund. These are bonds that are sold and are financed through the court costs and fines fund that we already have, similar to what was done on the historic courthouse renovation. And so this would not hit the general fund. It would not be sent to the taxpayers. This is possible because this isn't that big of a project. A larger project than this, the revenue coming in would not cover those bonds. And so we're kind of at the maximum where we can be on asking for that for this particular project. So I just wanted to pass it. I was not at the meeting. I'm not sure what all the questions were, but the judge and I and the chief and Judge Zimmerman, who's here to talk as well, have spoken a lot about this, and this relates directly to the fact that we have a new judge coming on who's going to be taking half of the juvenile caseload. I think Judge Zimmerman would probably be the best person to explain to you why it's essential that that position be down at the Juvenile Justice Center versus in the courtroom that Judge Taylor used to have. So,
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Judge Zimmerman, did you have one for Kevin? Okay.
I was told the other day, I was talking to somebody about this, and they said if the fees that they collected wasn't enough to pay for it, the county had to pay the difference. Is that true or not true?
no, the county's not allowed to pay any additional amounts on top of a bond. So when we ask for a bond, a state law prohibits the county from supplementing that bond amount out of its fund. So the bond is only going to be issued based on the court fees and fines cost that the county receives, which is what they have to sell to their investors. And so it'll all come from that revenue stream.
J.P. Pond.
I made a statement the other day that concerning being comfortable with the spare courtroom that we had, that at the time I was not informed that room is being used by emergency management, and that again we would have to find a place to move them out temporarily. The other thing, I'm not going to forget that a good number of the individuals staying at juvenile detention facility are there waiting for court over in Madison County. And once we get that new facility in place and another judge added on, I look forward to seeing the number of people, the number of young people at our juvenile detention facility, that number go down. And this is going to solve a whole lot of overcrowding problems there at the existing courtroom and at the juvenile detention facility. And I'll be for this, and I appreciate all the work that people have put into it, and I don't think there are very many people around that don't realize how badly needed this is. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. J.P. Harbison and then J.P. Yanez.
We really didn't have all the information we needed at the Finance Committee, but we do have the plans now. And I think we need to go on and move forward with it, because we've got a new judge coming the 1st of 2021, and this facility needs to be ready on January 1 for that, whoever selected that judge. There was a committee that helped design this, Judge Zimmerman and Matt Durrett and the public defenders. So, you know, this is not just something that was hatched out of the air in one day or something. So I really think we need to go on and pass this resolution tonight. Thank you.
You got a motion to pass? J.P. Harbison.
So I know how important this is for our community, but 2 questions. Historically, what are that revenue stream used for? The fines and fees?
The fines and fees, court cost fines and fees can only be used for court purposes, for the administration of justice purposes. And so it's not like this is money that can go into the general fund that we can then use. I think it's earmarked for the administration of justice.
Okay, and then do we have to keep a reserve on those funds?
Yes, there will be a built-in reserve on those funds. There always is, just like the ones that we have. And then any extra revenue that is, you know, clearly any extra revenue, kind of like what we have, that comes in, should there be additional revenue, will be put into kind of a general reserve that can be used by the county for the administration of justice purposes or to pay back the bonds early.
Great,
Something
thank
like
you.
that.
J.B. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Judge Wood. I'm in favor of this. I understand we need to do it. I am very, very concerned about our ability to get it done. If this is the drawing today, I'm very, very concerned about our ability to get this thing done by January 1st. I'm very, very happy Walmart is doing what they're doing in Bentonville, but I'll guarantee you that's already impacting everybody in the construction business in Washington and Benton County. The cost of everything is going up, and the people getting that work are buying the labor, which is going to drive all the labor. The resources are, so
Sure.
we got to get after this if we're going to get it done.
And J.P. Johnson makes a good point, and Judge Zimmerman is here, and obviously last year she was here presenting to all the court of the need and necessity of trying to gain another judge here for this, the 2 counties, Washington and Madison County, and obviously it did get passed in the budget process. Then the next piece was, okay, where would they be housed? And in fact, she was working both of them at the same time, and she came here, talked to us, talked at the meetings, did her presentations, and spent a lot of time talking about the court annex and really the challenges of even thinking about moving that person there, knowing that 50+% of their cases would be in the juvenile side. And so transporting, the parking, some of the legal issues of having families separate when they got multiple kids, et cetera. There's a number of those things that came into play. And the court pretty much all said, yes, let's look at that facility out there. And so here's where we are at this particular point. And so you're right, the pressures of construction, given that the big projects are going around this couple of counties, Benton County, Washington County, could pull construction and labor. And so the need to go ahead and work toward this and get going is critical. So J.P. Duncan.
Is there a motion on the floor?
It is a motion by J.P. Harbison.
Has there been a second?
It has not been a second.
I second it and call the question.
Who's the second? A second by J.P. Duncan. Any public comments?
Janelle Smiley from West Fayetteville. The public needs to be on notice that this meeting was convened unlawfully. Judge Wood, you are obligated to comply with statute when you set these meetings. Now we're compounding that unlawful scheduling of this meeting with bringing to this court something that never made it out of committee. And it's not a small thing, it's $5.5 million. What's the big rush that it can't wait till a regularly scheduled meeting after it makes it out of committee? It's unethical what is happening right now. And the court should be embarrassed. That's why we've had Eva Madison, Andrea Jenkins, and Suki Hires, and Sue Madison all leave this courtroom because their sense of justice has been offended, as it should be. We can house a judge easily in almost anywhere in the county. You don't have to have a $5.5 million building all ready by January 1. I have practiced in courtrooms that were definitely not amazing, wonderful edifices, but they served the purpose temporarily. And the county needs to find a room and plan on that basis, because the chances of something being thrown together properly before January 1 are nil to none. Let's do this right. Let's not play games with procedure. Play it straight, do it right, and do it well. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments?
If I can step out of my professional role real fast, just speak as a foster parent. I've had the pleasure of being in Judge Zimmerman's courtroom hundreds of times, not just as a foster parent, but also as fictive kin in my role as a pastor and as a teacher. So I've been there on my fictive kin side, speaking on behalf of children that were in JDC several other times as well. I will tell you that there is no other court in our county that is like that court. When you have multiple parents with multiple attorneys, with multiple ad litems, with CASA, with DHS, with teachers, with everyone under the sun there. When you have children that are lined up in a lobby and their rapists are paraded in front of them because our lobby is not big enough. It is a big, major concern. When you have a judge who works 12, 13, 14 hours a day because the caseload is so large, not just in JDC, but on the 72-hour holds that DHS is required by law to handle, this is a major thing. So it's a huge concern. As the Buildings and Grounds Director, you know it is going to be nigh impossible to get it done by January 1st. But if we don't start now, it won't even be done April 1st. We're getting another judge. That is very, very clear. Where they are now, we would, if we put them in any other facility, we would have to transport the juveniles that have to be under special care when you transfer them from JDC to another facility. We would have to then transport also their accusers, their families, their defenders, everyone to these other facilities. I looked at every possible place. Judge Zimmerman has been working on this for years. We've had over 35 different designs to make sure that this worked and flowed with everyone. And so, yes, we could throw our children and their families in a room somewhere. We could. I think they deserve more. And the best overall solution, if you look at the blueprint, the children that are in JDC, they aren't paraded through town. They go directly from JDC directly into the courtroom, just like they do in the current courtroom. We have room there for probation, we have room there for the new judge and their staff, and we actually have room to where families that are there, with all the different foster families that are there, have adequate space. I would just encourage anyone in the public, just go on a Wednesday, almost any day of the week, and just sit inside the juvenile detention lobby. You can't go in, but just go sit in the lobby, and you will quickly find
10
out
seconds, sir.
that you don't want there. So on my public role, not my job here, just in my experience as a foster parent and an adoptive father, this is very much needed. So as a citizen, I fully support it.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Zimmerman, I see you sitting out in the public gallery. Would you mind sending all of the JPs here the video of the little girl? I do believe it was a little girl who almost got killed because somebody bolted out of the courtroom, and it was just like a second and a half had she just not cleared the door to show just how narrow and dangerous that foyer is. If you still have that, would you send that to everybody, maybe even post it on YouTube? So that way they can see the dire need that we have to expand your facility, and I thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Ecke. Ms. Patty Roll.
Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Yes. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Derek Thomas. Pass.
All right, that ordinance passes. J.P. Lance Johnson, is that item, Tony? The resolution passes, I'm sorry. Item 22.
Yes, Mr. Lester, would you read the ordinance?
An ordinance canceling the regular meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court set for Thursday, February 20th, 2020.
Okay, I move to pass.
We got a motion and a second by J.P. Ecke. Discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Public comments? Oh, it's on the first one. We have a motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading. A second by J.P. Duncan. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it moves to a second.
An ordinance canceling the regular meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court set for Thursday, February 20th, 2020.
We got a motion to suspend the rule, motion to suspend the rules, move to a third and final reading, a second by J.P. Yanez. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Public comments?
No, I gotta read it.
Oh, read it, yes.
An ordinance canceling the regular meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court set for Thursday, February 20th, 2020.
Any public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty? Yes.
That was by Lance.
The original. Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Susan Cunningham. Yes. And Derek Thomas. It passes.
That passes. County Services, no meeting. J.P. Harbison, Finance and Budget.
Everything that we talked about tonight that had to do with money, we discussed in the Finance Committee. I want to make that short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. J.P. Johnson, Jails Law Enforcement.
Our report was emailed to all the JPs. If anybody's got any questions, ask me. Thank you.
And Personnel, J.P. Pine.
We had that title of a position change brought to us from the coroner, and I want to thank y'all for passing that along tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. Again, thanks again for everyone. Have a good Valentine's tomorrow. Meeting adjourned.